Hello, and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, I want to talk about narcissists and their relationships. In particular, their immediate familial, say, parents, family relationships, and also their, I guess I would say, personal relationships or romantic relationships. Basically, the enabler, the person they're intimate with. And it's sort of redundant to say that, to make that list, because narcissists don't have very many relationships. Narcissists don't really have friendships in the way that you and I may think of them or regard them, or even in a popular conception of what that means, what friendships, relationships, and all that kind of what those terms mean. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to go in any too much detail regarding their relationships because they have so few of them, and they're very similar and repetitive and the same even when they change. What I'm trying to get at in this video is that the relationships tell you a lot about who they are and what you're getting yourself into. Particularly how they respond to the people that they know and they have to deal with on a regular basis, which may not be very many. Now, there can be a lot of people they see and manipulate on a regular basis, but the people that they actually say live with and have to deal with are the inner circle, aside from you, or you could say the people who know them. That's when you're getting into territory that is very revealing as to what's going on in their minds, and I'm not sure, it's very significant in the whole scheme of things. It's often an enormous indicator of trouble when you're just getting into a relationship with a narcissist. And it's often, fortunately, not that hard to see. It's kind of there with the narcissist and their family, with the narcissist and, say, previous relationships, or relationships gone wrong, friendships too. If you're aware of those kinds of things, it gives you a lot of signs as to what's going on with them, because it sort of allows you to isolate them, especially when you have multiple sources. This is kind of a theoretical experiment I'm going on about, but it actually can be very practical. The real problem it runs into is the people who are going to be around the narcissist in the first place are going to justify the narcissist's excuse as to what their problems might be. Let's say that clearly there have been some issues. Somebody is divorced several times. Well, you know how the narcissist is going to reply. Well, there's something wrong with those people. There's something wrong with their exes or their parents or any other family members that they don't really associate with, but are part of that inner circle, that inner network of people who know them, and in a deeply personal way, or related to them. What that entails and what it allows you to, the conclusion it allows you to reach very early on and save yourself a lot of pain and trouble. The problem that really comes into play here is that it's nullified by the fact that people who go in with a narcissist in the first place are probably going to ignore those things. They're probably going to buy in with the narcissist's illusion and all their ideas without much resistance. It's going to be easy for the narcissist to do so because they've been hand-selected. And so it's usually not a good thing when you actually try to act on it. So, like, if you've ever tried to tell anybody, a close friend even, that maybe somebody isn't good for them, it can work. It's just that there's also a point where they don't really acknowledge their own problems, and so they're just going to walk into it anyway because they are drawn to it. They are drawn to that dysfunction and that destruction. It's doubly true for enablers and victims of narcissists. They are blind. You can't help them at all. sitting, talking, thinking about it, you get the impression that there's something you can do, there's something you can change, you can redirect the enabler from that course. But you really can't. There's nothing you can do. There's a threshold. And if they haven't crossed a certain line yet, there's basically nothing you can do. That's how I usually figure it. That's been my experience. That's how I see it. It's consistent. That sort of worldview, that perception, it's done well for me because I don't try to help people who aren't at the point where they acknowledge the existence of narcissists. You understand, a lot of those people, they don't really believe those people exist, that the people I'm describing, and even if they do exist, they don't think their narcissist is one. So there's really no point just yet. They're going to reach that breaking point, that pain threshold where they have to acknowledge it, as unpleasant as it is, for really all that it's worth. And I tend to bet on all that it's worth being that, well, there's a lot of pain now, but if they're going to get out, they can get out and then stay away forever. So that experience could be a new life for them. And as unpleasant as it is, sometimes you have to sit and watch and let that happen. And even worse, sometimes it never happens. Sometimes people don't get away at all, which is really unfortunate. I guess we can't save everybody, but we do our best. And getting back to their personal relationships is a huge indicator of what's going on. It can be very informative. Now, if you're somebody who's got a lot of experience with narcissists, you probably aren't going to need to see what's going on in their past or with their family to reach that conclusion. Usually there's things right off the bat you can figure out. If you're really somebody that either has experience with narcissists and or knows how to actively repel them, then you may not even see them in the first place. You don't even have to deal with that trouble, which is a nice thing. I feel like that's a minority of recovering enablers. I can't believe I just said that, but they are recovering enablers, people who are addicted, so to speak, to enabling narcissists and other abusive types. A lot of them can fall back into it, and they know it's wrong or it's bad, and they can still get out, but it's not just such a clean break and transition to being someone who doesn't do it at all. There's a margin there. There's areas of weakness, and they need support and all that kind of thing. How narcissists regard the people who actually know them. They regard them as bad. They always do. There's always something wrong with people around them in their inner circle. They don't have a healthy relationship with them. There's always something screwy going on. There's always games that are being played. There's always manipulation back and forth. Often, they learned it from their family in the first place. They learned it from the people around in their formative years. And so it's sort of a competition. I've seen narcissistic siblings go back and forth at each other, trying to one-up the other in sort of this dysfunctional game of chess within like a family get-together, within a single household. That is something that is so sophisticated. When you first see it and you don't have an understanding of narcissists, you don't know what to make of it. It just looks like sibling babble. It could even be cute or endearing somewhat. It can even draw you to them because it looks like it's a healthy family dynamic, but it's not at all. That's just the illusion. That's what people will say. But there's narcissism all around them. And at some point when things break and things go sour, they have to separate from the people that actually know them, from their close relatives and whatnot, because of all that dysfunction. It comes from somewhere. It's emanating from somewhere, and that's not a sustainable thing that can go on. They have to venture out and find enablers, more enabling stock to support them. But the intensely abusive and competitive environment that is the narcissist's family, their upbringing, their background, their personal history. And I mean that in sort of a medical sense. I mean, if you're actually going to look at them as a psychiatrist, as a medical professional, you'd have to take that into account. That would probably be your first question. What that means for you when you can recognize it is so enormous. You can learn a lot by looking at somebody's family. Well, it's kind of common sense. It's not too hard to get your head around. The difficult part is actually reaching an accurate conclusion from it. The reason I said that narcissists regard everyone as bad is because within that abusive structure, even if the family supports their illusion, because that's where it came from, that doesn't mean that there aren't frictions and conflicts within it, and thereby it kind of compromises their own illusion. What am I saying? In order for there to be a conflict with the narcissist themselves, there has to be some kind of problem within the family. And so they can't really stay close with their family to the extent that they're attached to you at the hip. They have to get away from them. It's a necessity. I think it's probably also a necessity that they have to regard them as bad, because there's going to be those frictions no matter what, even if they can also work together. There can be a mutual dysfunctional relationship in that it progresses both parties' interests. That is, that some things the family does is good for the narcissist, but some things that the narcissist does is good for the family. But then again, some things that they do aren't good for each other at all, and so thereby they're not going to like each other. They're going to label each other in such a way that is very, very negative, in the same way that narcissist does everybody, the same way that a narcissist does with previous relationships, for instance. What's wrong? Why didn't it work out? Well, I think we know whose fault it is. It's not the narcissist's fault. They didn't do anything wrong. That's how it works with the family as well. It's more sophisticated, it's more nuanced, because it's often more advanced. There's more complicated stuff going on, but it's still going to be in that ballpark. And I should note, too, that the duality is within the illusion is also present for the family. So that is, the narcissist can love their family deeply and then use what benefits them. They support that. But the negative stuff, they condemn. It's bad. And often, because they don't want to look bad themselves, they're not going to bring it out in a way that's really direct, of course. It's not going to be a wholesale condemnation of their family. That would be somebody who's bad. That would make them look sort of questionable. It makes you suspicious of them. And that's not good. That doesn't work. That doesn't maintain their illusion. I also think somewhere that the narcissist family represent the narcissist mind. The narcissist family intact and together and being dysfunctional is a model, possibly a accurate replica of what's going on in their head every day. Now that's kind of fruity, what I just said in itself, but I often find there's a correlation there. That's why I'm always thinking about the environment they grew up in, what little I know about it, what little I know about the actual exchange and the actual abuse that went on in the daily, almost ritualistic type behaviors, just like the narcissist engages in with you, that happened to them. But I don't know that line by line, blow by blow kind of thing. I don't have it at that level of detail. But when I do, I just find it to be so informative. It's unimaginable. It's so much more than anything I can just sit and pontificate about, because it's really evidence. It's really right. If you're in that, if you see that going on, you see one, insanity, but you're also inside the horse's mouth. Essentially, you're seeing where everything comes from. You're seeing how the whole process and almost incubation takes place. And if you're somebody like me, who you're really trying to understand this for your own benefit and for others' benefit and sharing with others, your own kind of personal improvement, when you've been so affected by it, it's so informative. Now, it's also disturbing, naturally, and doesn't make you feel super good, but there's still so much education that's taking place, and that can happen at all different levels. Well, I guess the reason I'm going on to this as a personal matter is that it's so often ignored, I feel like, by the general population. If anybody's going to understand narcissists, and probably mental disorders for that reason, that point of view, it's even more important for a group like narcissists, because it's everything. So many other mental disorders have many, many different causes. And while I think it's true that it's the same for narcissists, I don't think it's a bunch of different factors that happen over their lives that lead to some kind of diagnosis of mental disorder. I think it's a extremely intense, abusive situation within a few short years that actually make them like that. I don't think it's of course it's not one incident. It's regular, sustained behavior over a period of years. But I'm not so sure that it takes, 10 or 15 years for the narcissist to become a narcissist. Because as I said, I see narcissistic kids. And little kids, and that would strongly suggest that it happens really early on. That's going to be a very concentrated, intense moment. And that's why it plays such an important role in trying to understand it. And that's why I've touched upon it before. Is because it leads you to so much in fleshing out and rounding out your understanding, and probably of human beings in general. Because when you're in, as I said, when you're in that intense moment, you see so much going on. And the more experienced you are, the more you can put together. Because it really is a perfect exhibit of the potential for human insanity and human irrationality, and therefore human abuse and destruction and others' lives, and how that carries on and what that does to our society. I'm not trying to preach now, but it does a lot of damage because it isn't acknowledged, it isn't recognized. And of course, just like the narcissists in our personal lives, we can put it on the back burner and ignore it. And we can see just how destructive it can really be. And that's its greatest strength, is for it to not be acknowledged, for it to not be understood. And if we decide we can do something about it in our own lives, then instead of seeing just how depraved certain people can be, we can see how good we can also be when we choose to prevent it. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Like it if you do. Share it with somebody you think might benefit from it. Comment in the comment section below about what you think of narcissists and their families and how the whole dynamic plays out. I know that's a broad question, but just give me your thoughts and experiences, because I'm interested in reading what you have to say and what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.